Peter Baker, let's take our cue from your piece, which went up about 28 hours ago. The danger of phrases like the cure can't be worse than the disease, the danger of phrases like it is what it is, about things like our national death toll.
Yeah, I think that this episode sort of reinforces just how problematic and challenging it will be to reopen the country. If we cannot be sure about a protocol to keep the president of the United States safe, what's it going to be like in meat factories in the Midwest? What's it going to be like in office buildings in Manhattan? What's it going to be like in those barbershops in Georgia we're seeing? And it raises all sorts of questions. Now, you can understand why the president would be eager to reopen the economy as quickly as possible. Those numbers you flashed earlier represent a lot of pain. 33 million people, 1 out of every 5 workers in this country without a job right now. A lot of those people are getting federal aid, but some of them aren't, as that interview you played showed. And those people may be having a hard time paying to feed their children, paying for other health issues that they might have. So there's a lot of pain and a lot of motivation on the part of a president to reopen the economy, but balanced against the health risk is the challenge, right? If you open up so soon that the virus not only doesn't go away, it comes back again in even stronger form in the fall, which is what some of the public health experts worry about, then there won't be an economy there to reopen because a lot of people won't be coming out to their jobs, won't be going out to restaurants, won't be doing the things that the president would like them to do. So these things are intertwined. They're not in opposition to each other. They're intertwined. And finding that balance is a challenge, I think, for even the best of our leaders.
And Steph Ruhle, Peter invoked the economy. That means we pivot to you. For those families not already suffering, a lot of us are having a hard time prognosticating. Perhaps you can. How bad is this going to get?
Brian, look at the numbers. Put it in perspective. 33.2 million people in the last 7 weeks filing for unemployment. When we faced the financial crisis, the worst month during the financial crisis, we saw 800,000 drop in jobs. Since we started the stay-at-home orders, we're seeing 3 to 6 million per week. Now, of course, we know this is temporary because we've shut our economy off and so many businesses have been forced to shut down. And yes, those businesses are desperate to open back up. I am sure all 4 of us are desperate to go out to eat and to resume our lives. So things are going to get back somewhat to normal. But when the numbers have gotten this bad, there's absolutely no way that we can bounce back. And one other thing that's important to note, we have a consumer-based economy. When you've got 33 million people out of a job, when 1 in 5 people who do have a job have faced a pay cut, you're certainly not going to see a consumer spending jamboree. And without that spending, how is this country going to do well economically? Consumer spending is the key to our economy.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.